Moreh Chanan doing a lesson on the path of Yahuah. Yeah, you put a whole paragraph up there. It's too long.
It says that we live. Oh man. Yeah, let me get that. Now give him the red mic so because he be on the yeah.
You don't want me to be constantly on.
Unless you want to come up here, it's all written now. All right. Yeah. You ready? Oh, what you doing? Okay. All right. Shalom, everyone. Eyes back. You see? And we are going to continue. Don't let distractions get you down. We left off on what? The east wind. And they had a lot of questions at the end of that, thanks to Laura Lamont. Yeah. So we're gonna see if he's gonna help answer these questions again today. Huh? What you mean though? Huh? You the one who brought him up? Huh? Oh no, you can't disappear now. No. All right, so you see the title, it's about evil spirits. We're gonna tackle that a little bit at the end, but not really gonna talk about it today. I just wanted to throw that out there. Since I've been gone for a month, we're gonna have to backtrack this a little bit so we can get reacquainted with what we were talking about. But for today, I am all about painting pictures. All right. So everything we talk about today, I want you to really think about it and see if it applies to you. Especially when I start to read this story that we're going to read in a few. It's a real story. And then we're going to talk about the east wind again. I think that it's really important that, that picture is painted as well, so you can see what's going to happen with these winds and how these evil spirits come about. All right. Oh, and I will be reading my dream that I read twice already, Close the Door. That's going to be to your point about identifying certain things and how to get rid of them. Okay. All right. Now, all of these things may or may not apply to you. I just wanted you to see if it does. Then once you've come to a conclusion, see what you can do better or differently in that situation. Right. All right. Oh, I'm thinking I got the HDMI cord. I'll just press a button. I know. All right. Okay. So I'm going to read this opening statement word by word, okay? Because I think it's important for all of us to get this. Y'all remember this? The bus of preparedness. Yeah, I brought that up. It was, I think it was May 2020. And I mentioned on how December the 18th of that year, I think it was 2019, I had got word that a good friend of mine had died. Remember? And I said that it was shocking because I had just talked to her a month before, and gave her some tips on how to beat the cancer that ultimately took her life. Now, talked to her in November. It was around Thanksgiving. So about a month later, she was gone. And I also talked about how in 2014, it was almost the same thing with my aunt. Talked to her around Thanksgiving in 2014, and the next month, she was gone. Yeah, Thanksgiving is something, ain't it? Now, what I wanted to demonstrate is the need to get it together. Okay. The need to get it together mentally, physically, spiritually, which is a big one, and we'll talk about that today. Emotionally, which is a big one, and financial. Right. Now, like I said, this was May of last year. I brought this up. May isn't about 3 months away this year. All right. So with that, how many of you are actually prepared? I don't. I'm not talking about bug out bags and preparing food for wherever might come. I'm talking about listening to what the Father has told you and doing and acting on that. All right. Mm-hmm. Now, and I'm also not talking about what you think you heard the Father say or do. I'm talking about actually hearing him, getting confirmation, and applying it to your life. All right. There is a shift coming. This came up in here. All right. There is a shift coming. And if you're on the prayer chat, we have a little prayer chat in Telegram. I gave the song by Jason Nielsen. It's called Shifting the Atmosphere. All right. Because I can feel that shift. Now, you have to be doing and acting according to what the Father wants in order to feel this shift. Some of you may say that that's a little biased or judgmental, but it's the truth. Now, granted, you may feel that shift a little earlier or later than some, but if you are not walking in that spirit, and we'll talk about that today, walking in the spirit, but if you're not walking the way the Father has intended you to walk, how can you feel this shift? Because this is of the Father, right? This isn't something that man made, right? You have to have an internal clock that only the Father knows the time. But it's placed inside of you, so when it's time, you will act accordingly. That's what this whole bus of preparedness was for, right? To know when it was time to act. Now, you see that bus is gone. It's already gone. People who was on it, they left. Like I said, May is coming up in a couple of months, and it might be another one. But if you're not prepared, you need not to worry about that bus. Now, there's all kind of buses for me, myself, and I. You can get on that bus every 20 minutes. Is it yellow? Okay. That bus of preparedness is the only ticket you should seek after, right? So now I'm going to ask again, how many of you are prepared? Who got their hand up? I don't see anybody. Oh, okay. I was just making sure. You said you're working on it? All right. May is coming now. Now, do you all know, how quickly your life can change, for the good or the bad now, but not just change, but how quickly it can be taken away from you. And that's what we stayed on last year with these lessons that I did. It's explaining to you all how you need to prepare yourself for what's going to come. I'm going to read a story. This is one of those stories I want you to think about, all right? Just briefly. All right. Now, this is a story of David Bell. All right. This story is a little different for me because I knew David. We went to high school together. All right. But I didn't keep in communication with David after high school. Now, you can Google this story if you want to. It's still a new story and it's still developing. All right. So, David was from Markham, Illinois. All right. I grew up in Markham. He moved to St. Peters, Missouri with his wife, Sadie, and their 2 or 3 kids. I'm not sure how many he had. But to make a long story short, all right, David was having breathing problems on 3 separate occasions. He went to a certain hospital, and for obvious reasons because of the story, I will not name the hospital. But he went there complaining of breathing problems, okay? The first 2 times, the hospital gave him ibuprofen and sent him home. Mm-hmm. This 3rd time, his co-workers, ironically, at the Central County Fire and Rescue, where he worked as a director, so he worked at a firehouse, took him back to the same hospital where they denied him due treatment again. Now, when Sadie, his wife, arrived at the hospital, her husband was sitting outside in a wheelchair. She claimed that doctors once again had refused treatment for him. She said that the doctor said, "Ma'am, he's already been here twice for the same thing. We've already diagnosed him." And Sadie said that she was about to take him to another hospital when he died right there in the parking lot. Mm. She went on to say that race may have played a part, but the message that I'm trying to convey is that you never know when it's going to be your time. Now, this situation probably could have been avoided. I don't know. But my message is that as quickly as you wake up, as quickly as you can go right back to sleep. So in an instance like this, every waking day that you have needs to be in obedience to the Father. Right? Nothing more, nothing less. Right? So that was one of those first stories I want you to think about. See how that applies to your life. All right. Rules. Please keep your mic muted except when asking or answering the question. Use the mic to speak. There is a feature on Zoom in the meeting room where you can raise your hand if you have a question. Start next week. All questions must be on the topic. You have 60 seconds to ask or answer a question. If you pass your 60-second window, your mic will be muted for you. These rules are due to time and the recordings of the lessons. These are live teachings. We must give the Moreh enough time to complete the lesson. You gotta get to your rifle.
I was trying not to make a scene.
Oh well, you.
Told out.
Yeah, you making a big scene right now. Raise your hand. No. Yeah, do it. All right, let's start off with a brief review. All right. In the Old Testament, you had the word ruach, which means, first of all, wind and breath, but also the human ruach in the sense of life force and even personal energy. The ruach ordinarily implies air in motion, often manifested in the natural order as a powerful wind or storm, or in the life breath of the individual. We saw that it was the H7306, the prime root, which meant to blow, i.e. breath only. Then if you go down, you see we have wind, or even violent, exhalation, figuratively, life, anger, a region of the sky by resemblance the spirit. Includes its expression and functions as being air, anger, blast, the breath, the cool, the mind, and the spirit. All right, then we started talking about the wind in Palestine. This is another one of those stories, okay? Now, the wind is caused when heated air rises and air from around moves in to take its place. The conjunction of land and sea in Palestine and close position of the highlands and lowlands causes great differences of temperature and consequently an almost constant movement of air. Periods of stagnant air are short. When it's most regular in the summer, when the general movement of air over the eastern Mediterranean is from west to east. Keep that in mind. Bring it with it no rain, but often heavy dew to the coastal areas and seaward slopes. Now, for most people who've been in Israel, you know, the day begins with complete calm. But as the sun heats the land, a strong sea breeze develops. It tops the central ridge at about midday and pours into the central rift in a torrent heated by descent. At about 3 p.m., it surmounts the eastern plateau, once more cool and refreshing. Now, the farmers depend upon this very regular wind for winnowing the grain. We can see that in Isaiah 41:16. Now, contrary, the land breeze at night is decidedly weaker. All right. So, Isaiah 41:16, you shall winnow them, and the wind shall carry them away, and the tempest shall scatter them. Right. Now, the Hebrew word for winnow is the H22:19. Zarah, all right, to toss about, by implication to diffuse, right? You see there, cast away, disperse, or scatter, all right? At the bottom, we had it to disperse dust by the wind. Same thing on the bottom there. Or it should say to winnow so as to remove something undesirable. All right. Ezekiel 22:16. I will scatter you among the nations and disperse you through the countries, and I will consume your uncleanness out of you. Now, the word for scatter here in this context is the H6327. Anybody see what it's called? Kaputz. To dash in pieces, literally or figuratively, especially to disperse, break, dash, to shake into pieces, right? And it's a verb meaning to scatter, disperse, overflow. Refers to the scattering of an army, a herd of sheep, or to the nations of Israel and Judah being scattered as exiles. Right? All right. Ezekiel 12:15. And they shall know that I am Yahuah when I disperse or poos them among the nations and scatter Zerah them among the countries. All right. Still talking about the wind in Palestine. In winter, the atmosphere is much less stable and powerful cyclones move eastward across the Mediterranean, bringing with them strong winds, sometimes of gale force, and often torrential rain or even snow. Intervening periods are relatively calm with brilliantly clear air. Now, in the two transitional seasons comes the Sirocco, an intensely hot and dry east wind, filling the air with a haze of yellow dust and lasting for about 3 to 5 days, though occasionally longer. So we started off talking about the east wind with this verse here, Job 1:18-19. While he was yet speaking, there came another and said, your sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house. And behold, a great wind came across the wilderness and struck the four corners of the house. And it fell upon the young people, and they are dead, and I alone have escaped to tell you. Now, last time we talked about this, we understood that the great wind of Elohim plays a significant role in the life of Job. It is a force of such enormous power. And here in this context, it was the emphasis on the suddenness and destructive force of that wind. So in such cases, it may only be necessary to qualify this particular wind term as strong, violent, or destructive. Right? All right. So we find out that the H6921 was Kadim, right? And it meant the east, often advances eastward for briefly the east wind. All right. You also see here that it was described as being the violent wind blowing from the east, mentioned more frequently in the Bible than other winds. All right. And as you can see at the bottom, it also states that it is violent and scorching. Now, all of these natural features of the east wind, together with all their consequences, however, are at the same time manifestations of divine activities, meaning there's something out there that is causing this wind to blow. All right. How are we doing so far? This is just a review. Y'all should remember this, huh? Okay. All right. Yeah. You speaking for everybody? Yeah, okay. Now let's talk about the climate. All right. The Great Sea and the vast desert between the land of Israel lies, where the land of Israel lies, are the primary influences on Israel's climate. Air heated by the Mediterranean sun rises and is replaced by cool, moisture-laden winds coming from the Mediterranean Sea. Yeah, you missed it. I do too. The Mediterranean Sea breeze begins on the coast in the morning, reaches Jerusalem around noon, and descends through the wilderness to the Rift Valley by mid to late afternoon. Israel's Mediterranean sea to land breeze brings cooling relief to what would be an otherwise hot and uncomfortable climate. During transitions between the seasons, the wind blows in the opposite direction, bringing hot, arid, and dusty air out of the desert. These winds obscure visibility, irritate the eyes, and leave everything in their path under a light deposit of dust. Now, this reminds me of when we were in Israel, we were traveling to Tiberias. I remember that. Now, after reading about how the wind and that heat starts in the west and makes its way east, there's really nothing like experiencing it for real, right? Now, just like any other day in Israel, the day started off great. It was nice, cool breeze, sun wasn't hot. Uh-oh. You got put your hands up. Put your hands up. You got okay. There's real But as we were making our way there, it started to turn up a little bit, right? But the problem wasn't the heat for me. That was to be expected. Is that great wind coming out of here? Uh-oh. Yeah. It's a ruach. It shouldn't come out you. It just go in you. That's a whole nother lesson. Okay. Woo. Y'all are a mess. Oh my goodness. But like I said, it wasn't the heat for me. That was to be expected. It was the dust. You ever get something caught in your throat, feel like dust, and you try to, like that, you try to get it out and it won't come out. Yeah. That's how it was on the way to Tiberias. The closer we got, the thicker the dust became. Now here goes another one of those thinking points. All right. I want y'all to think about that spiritually. When you make a decision that you know is not the fault, and instead of repenting for that decision, so you can go on about your day with it, you ride that decision out. You ride it all the way to the end, right? It starts to mess with you. You start to feel convicted. It grows on you till you can't get rid of it. Now, just like that wind and that dust, that wrong decision starts to follow you. It turns into a storm, and you can't outrun that storm because the Father won't let you. He's going to let you know every waking day what you did wrong, right? At some point, you have to face that thing head on. Now, either you acknowledge it, repent so you can move on, or you deny it and let it take you all the way down. And everything we say and do, there are choices. All right. Now, for some of us, we want to have that cool mist, the cool breeze on our back that's guiding us along. And for others, it seems like they like the storm. They like the trouble. Right? They like to live on the wild side. I don't think there's anybody in here, right? We all want to be part of the ruach, except for you. You're trying to put it back in. You're the one coughing. Let's think about that. All right. All right. So the east wind is described as being scorching, probably because it comes into Palestine from the burning desert. Now we will look at Genesis 41:6, 41:23, 41:27. Starting at verse 41:6. Oh, maybe y'all need to see it. All right. And behold, after them sprouted 7 years, thin and blighted by the east wind. 23 and 24. Uh-oh. Nope. I got to get the computer right. 7 ears withered, thin and blighted by the east wind, sprouted after them. And the thin ears swallowed up the 7 good ears. And I told it to the magicians, but there was no one who could explain it to me. And come on now. 41 and 27. The 7 lean and ugly cows that came up after them are 77 years. And the 7 empty ears blighted by the east wind are also 7 years of famine. Now, they have blighted, which means scorch in the verses we just read. And the Hebrew word for scorch, and that is the H77 to 10. All right. Shadaf. It means it's the prime root to scorch, a blast. All right. Pertaining to being dry and shriveled and so unhealthy due to intense drying heat as a natural weather occurrence. And we just read it in those 3 verses. Note, in context, a drying by an east wind. All right, so there is another name that represents scorch. It is Sirocco. It's a scorching wind that is a Mediterranean wind that comes from the Sahara and can reach hurricane speeds in North Africa and Southern Europe, especially during the summer season. All right. And so we read this in Jonah 4, 6 through 11. Now Yahuah Elohim appointed a plant and made it come up over Jonah, that it might be a shade over his head, to save him from his discomfort. So Jonah was exceedingly glad because of the plant. But when dawn came up the next day, Elohim appointed a worm that attacked the plant, so that it withered. When the sun rose, Elohim appointed a scorching east wind, and the sun beat down on the head of Jonah, so that he was faint. And he asked that he might die, and said, "Is it better for me to die than to live?" But Elohim said to Jonah, "Do you do well to be angry for the plant?" And he said, "Yes, I do well to be angry enough to die." And Yahuwah said, "You pity the plant for which you did not labor, nor did you make it grow, which came into being in the night and perished in the night. And should I not pity Nineveh, that great city in which there are more than 120,000 persons who do not know their right hand from their left, and also much cattle?" So we explained that, this scorching wind left Jonah comfortless and faint. All right. The prophet's own shelter was not enough to protect him from the terrible hot wind from the east. And I believe I said something to the fact, you can lose the protection of the Father that the Father gives you when you're disobedient to his commandments. All right. So losing precious shade in this harsh environment was one matter for Jonah. Experiencing this horrible wind was yet another. Now, when this wind is experienced in the Near East, the temperature rises dramatically and the humidity drops quickly. It is a constant and extremely hot wind that contains fine particles of dust. It contains constant hot air so full of positive ions that it affects the levels of serotonin and other brain neurotransmitters, causing exhaustion, depression, feelings of unreality, and occasionally bizarre behavior, much like when it came to Jonah and this worm in the plant. Now, the things that we want to do and the things that distract us the most still have nothing to do with the Father when it comes to his word. I think Jonah found this out the hard way, right? Before anything else goes down, you must be obedient. Or just like Jonah, the Father will put you in a very uncomfortable state for which you will be, in this instance, being convicted. He got convicted by what was going on, right? So because you didn't do something you knew you were supposed to do. All right. Apparently I got another verse that I didn't know about. Psalms 11:6. Yahuwah tests the righteous, but his soul hates the wicked and the one who loves violence. Let him rain coals on the wicked, fire and sulfur, and scorching wind shall be the portion of their cup. You always say actions speak louder than words, right? We may not see that the wicked things that you have going on, but who sees those wicked things? Right. All right. 2 Timothy 1:7. For Elohim gives us a spirit, not of fear, but of power and love and self-control, or a sound mind, yes. Now, the set apart ruach does not produce cowardice, right? A spirit of cowardice would falter under a heavy load of responsibilities. The set apart ruach produces power, a reference to forcefulness of character that comes out bold and confident. And I always like to say that's what Moreh Lamadyahu is made of, because he don't have a filter sometimes. It's all, It's called love. Oh, okay. The set apart ruach also produces a love that endures even the most cankerous opposition and self-discipline, that can use restraint and oppose indulgence. Now, this love is not so much a love that produces ministry as a love that conquers contempt and opposition by forgiveness and refusal to speak revenge, remember, you have to be bold and confident. This self discipline refers to a wise head, right? Which provides wise guidance for the use of power and love. And we'll talk more about wisdom a little later, right? So the Greek word here, anyone want to get at a shot? It's a G4151 is pneuma, all right? A current of air, i.e. breath, blast, or a breeze. As we can see, it's frequently a spirit, mental disposition, a demon. What happened? Okay. What do you say? Pneuma? Pneuma? Okay. Set apart spirit or the ghost. That ain't the way they said it on Lagos. Yeah. Yeah, pneuma. Pneuma. I said it there. So this is where we will start today. Okay. No. Oh my goodness. Let's start off with John 3:8. There you go. The wind blows where it wishes, and you hear its sound, but you do not know where it comes from or where it goes. So it is with everyone who is born of the Spirit. Mm-hmm. Now, this reminds me of Saul's conversion in Acts 9, starting in verse 3. Now, as he went on his way, he approached Damascus, and suddenly a light from heaven, or Shamin, shone around him. And falling to the ground, he heard a voice saying to him, Shaul, Shaul, why are you persecuting me? And he said, Who are you, sovereign? And he said, I am Yahuah, whom you are persecuting. But rise and enter the city, and you will be told what to do. The men who were traveling with him stood speechless, hearing the voice, but seeing no one. Now, that word, pneuma, right, means both wind and spirit, right? It's individual and mysterious like the blowing of the wind. Man controls neither. So when Elohim brings a breeze, he brings it when and where he chooses. Right? Now, this is a spiritual prototype for the way Elohim brings people to the faith. Human effort can only produce human results. And we know this if we go to John 1:13, starting at verse 12. But to all who did receive him, who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of Elohim, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man. But who? But Elohim. Right. So again, like I like to state, and we just read in John and in Acts, this is the reason why I give Father thanks for pulling the wool from over my eyes, right? Giving me the eyes to see his word and applying it to my life. That's why I asked you all earlier, were you prepared? Right? Are you seeing what the Father is trying not only to teach you, but prepare you for? He don't give this to everybody. I said that before. He does not give everybody what he's given us. He does not give us, he doesn't give everybody the sight to see, and he surely doesn't give everybody their gifts, no matter what they are, as long as they are for the body. Because that's the ultimate goal, right? To be a part of those branches, right? All right. When it comes to the Ruach, that's a whole different story. And as I said before, Yahuah has the absolute right and sovereign ability to do as he wishes. There is no power in heaven or Shamayim or on earth that can deter him from accomplishing his purpose, as whether good or bad. All right. Now, when it comes to this, John 3:8, this was a Mashiach drawing a analogy between something that happens in the world, the freedom of the wind to blow where it will, and what happens in the realm where Yahuwah's Ruach operates, the freedom of the Ruach to give spiritual birth to whomever he will. The Father determines such things, okay? So let's go over some examples of that. 1 Corinthians 12 and 11. To each is given the manifestations of the Spirit for the common good. For to one is given through the Spirit the utterance of wisdom, and to another the utterance of knowledge according to the Spirit, to another faith by the same Spirit, to another gifts of healing by one Spirit, to another the working of miracles, to another prophecy, to another the ability to distinguish between spirits, to another various kinds of tongues, to other the interpretation of tongues. All these are empowered by one and the same Spirit, who apportions to each one individually as he wills. All right? As it pertains to this, this is talking about spiritual gifts, like I just mentioned. These gifts were not meant to be selected by individuals or personally solicited by them, but was instead given by the Father's Spirit as he determined. Now, also remember, we talked about empowerment before. We talked about with Shaul and with Solomon, remember? And remember, we said an empowerment is an authority or power given to someone to do something, all right? Or the process of becoming stronger and more confident, especially in controlling one's life and claiming one's rights. Mm-hmm. How we doing so far? We good? Okay, I'm surprised that the mic's been sitting there. You ain't, yeah. Okay. It don't matter. Sometimes you got something to say during the review. Psalms 11 and 3. If the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do? Mm-hmm. Now, the word for foundations here is the H8356, right? Shatah, did I say that right? Okay, good. A basis, i.e., figuratively, political or moral support, right? It's a foundation. It's the purpose for what you're doing, right? Now, these foundations refer to the law and the order of society based on Yahuah's laws, statutes, and commandments. Now, when it comes to Psalms 11:3, just like today, the foundations are destroyed when there is a fear that the nation might crumble. When people get that in their heads, then we start to see the separation start to happen. Right? We start to see what kind of concrete was poured to form the foundation you stand on. And many times we find that people start to stray away from what got them in the truth in the first place. In this verse, their view wasn't based on the Father's word. And that opens doors that don't need to be open. Now remember, I read twice a dream that I will read again about closing the doors that kept reopening. Now, I think the Father wants to drive that point home again, so I'll read that. But before I read that, I asked a question. Now, I want y'all to think about this question for a moment. We'll get back to it at the end of the lesson. What do you do? Well, you might want to write this down in case you forget. Mm-hmm. What would you do when you're faced with something you can't handle? No. Don't answer that now. What do you do when you're faced with something? Hold on. No, I'm sorry. What things as what do you do? That's question number one. Okay. So when things as you know it come crashing down around you, I lost my place. Hold on. What do you do? Okay. So that's the question. I'm sorry. What do you do when you're faced with something you can't handle? Okay. No, you don't run. When things as you know it come crashing down around you, this is where your foundation comes into play. When you stomp down on your foundation, meaning when things get tested, will it start to show cracks or will it hold true? All right. Now this will be the basis for Moreh Lamadyahu's questions at the end of the last lesson. All right. So on our second to last lesson, we read from Matthew 7:24. Build your house on the rock. Now, remember that? Let's go back to. All right. So build your house on the rock. Everyone then who hears these words of mine and does them will be like a wise man who built his house on the rock. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, but it did not fall, because it had been founded on the rock. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell. And great was the fall of it. So a wise person represents those who put the Father's words into practice. They too are building to withstand anything. It's their foundation. Those who pretend to have faith, who, like to play the intellectual part, or who enjoy Yahuah in small doses, are foolish builders. So when the storms of life come, their structure fools no one, and it falls, right? It certainly does not fool the Father. So let's look at Ezekiel 13, 10. Let's see, I'll start at verse 8. So it'd be 13, 8 to 16. Now, look at what the Father says concerning the false prophets. The Father says he hates a lying tongue, right? So therefore, thus says Yahuah Elohim, because you have uttered falsehood and seen lying visions. Therefore, behold, I am against you, declares Yahuah Elohim. My hand will be against the prophets who see false visions and who give lying divinations. They shall not be in the council of my people, nor be enrolled in the register of the house of Israel, nor shall they enter the land of Israel. And you shall know that I am Yahuah Elohim. Precisely because they have misled my people, saying peace where there is no peace. And because when the people build a wall, these prophets smear it with whitewash. Say to those who smear it with whitewash that it shall fall. There will be a deluge of rain, and you, O great hailstones, will fall, and a stormy wind break out. And when the walls fall, it will not be said to, will it not be said to you, where is the coating with which you smeared it? Therefore, thus says Yahuah Elohim, I will make a stormy wind break out in my wrath. And there shall be a deluge of rain in my anger, and great hailstones and wrath to make a full end. And I will break down the wall that you have smeared with whitewash and bring it down to the ground, so that its foundations will be laid bare. When it falls, you shall perish in the midst of it, and you shall know that Yahuah Elohim. Thus, when I spin my wrath upon the wall and upon those who have smeared it with whitewash, and I will say to you, the wall is no more, nor those who smeared it, the prophets of Israel who prophesied concerning Jerusalem. I hear that, Mike. And saw visions of peace for her when there was no peace, declares Yahuah Elohim. Go ahead.
I wanted you to finish, but I just wanted to point out something really quick on your previous slide, and then because it'll go in with what you're saying.
Yeah, I hope it was.
Okay, so really fast. So when it says, for example, he built his house on sand, right? Now,
Can I hear you?
it's on.
Can y'all hear him on Zoom? I hear him come to the speaker. Oh, you hear him come to the speaker? Okay, go ahead.
All right. So when it talks about, I'm not sure if you're going to go this far, so I figure I'll just share it now. So when it talks about, we know what the rock is, the house on rock, the house on sand, right? Mm-hmm. So though we have the Greek, if we look at it from the Hebrew, though, the word for sand is the word chil, right? Chil, and literally means something that either it's fear, mm-hmm. something that you pervert, mm-hmm. something that's polluted. Mm-hmm. So if you build a house on something that in fear, if you build your house something that's perverted, then you understand further into this parable of what he's sharing. So really fast, for right now, I'm just simply sharing that because this is a parable, we need to understand what a rock means and what sand means, and then as we keep going, we'll go through the rest. But just keep a mental note. The house, if your house is built on something that's been perverted, if your house is built on something in fear, if your house is built on something other than him, it is not a rock. Okay, is everyone with me so far? Okay, so I'll stop there because there's more to what sand is, but I think you're going to get to it later.
Right, those were those identifying the different winds. Yeah, we hadn't got to that part yet. As long as we on the same page, as we always are, it's a good thing. He gave you something. All right. Now, the second to last lesson of December, we read from Luke 6:47-49. All right. Again, this was build your house on the rock. Why do you call me master, master, and do not do what I tell you? All right. And what is that saying? Why did he say that? Anybody? Not all at once. Hmm? Why did he say that? Why did Yahuah say that? I can't. He must be outside. Is it raining? I still can't hear you. You turn it off.
Shalom.
Okay, there you go.
Because they're not doing what he tell them to do. That's why he said it.
If you don't
they call
trust
him master, but they don't give him that title, that respect as a master.
Because what does master mean?
What does master mean?
Think about what it says in KG. Teacher, teacher, sovereign, sovereign.
Yeah, the king, sovereign.
Yeah. If you don't trust and have the belief that whatever the Father is leading you to do, then what's the point? Right? Go ahead now, Mona.
Because a servant always obeys his master.
Oh, okay. He should. Yeah, that's what Moreh Chanan said. He should. Right? Right. Why should he continue to look out for you when you're not following his lead? So yes, that's what it is, right? This is where those winds come into play. That's what this Moreh Lamad was just talking about, right? All right, let's continue. Everyone who comes to me and hears my words and does them, I will show you what he is like. He is like a man building a house who dug deep and laid the foundations on the rock. And when a flood arose, the stream broke against that house and could not shake it because it had been well built. But the one who hears and does not do them is like a man who built a house on the ground without a foundation. When the stream broke against it, immediately it fell, and the ruin of that house was great. So back to Moreh Lamad's point and what I wanted to convey on the surface level, because I can't go as deep as he does. When the common thing for both spiritual houses, right, for Matthew and Luke, you had the Messiah saying, "They hear my words," or he hears my words, right? So both had the common knowledge of the Father's word, right? So if you want to relate it to us, this is Mashiach saying that both of us know his word. They know what it says to do. One chooses to do it and one doesn't, right? Go ahead.
All right. So are you about to get into the you're building the house on the rock, and are you going to go to the sand next?
Go ahead.
If not, I'll go ahead.
Go
Keep
ahead.
going. Okay. So the other part I want to understand,
Yeah.
because you're in this here, where it talks about the flood and against the house, and it talks about not shaking, right? So again, with that saying, one of the key words, one of the main words for a word sand or heal is pain.
Pain.
If you built your house in pain, it will not stand. So what winds up happening, here comes the shaking, here comes things that starts talking about the flood. Why? Because you built your house literally in pain and fear and something that's been perverted. This is why there's going to be a problem, and your ground is not going to be with any type of foundation. Okay?
Then pick 20 seconds. All right. So that's, yes, we're going to get to that, not in this lesson, because I want to say that from when we actually identify these actual spirits and such. But thank you. Yeah, right. But this also has something to do with the inward and the outer man, right? The inward and the outward man. Okay. Whew. The reason you cannot tell the difference between them is that that deep foundations of their lives are hidden from view. All right. So the real question is not whether they hear the Father's word, but whether they do what they hear. And for some of us, only a storm will reveal that truth. Now, sometimes a storm of crisis or calamity betrays what manner of a person we are. For the true piety is not fully distinguished from its counterfeit till it comes to trial. That's why you got the, I don't know, the young folks still say snitches get stitches. Okay, they still do. Okay, snitches get stitches. Yeah, yeah. Now, there's nothing like finding out the real you when the prosecutor says you got 20 to life, right? It's not going to hit you till it hits you, right?
What about Bobo
Yeah.
and John?
Well,
It was that.
you know, when one fall, they all fall. The truth on which Yahushua is insisting is that, you know, neither intellectual knowledge of him nor verbal profession, though both are essential to one's life, you know, the whole professing to know the Messiah during the emergence, but there's nothing that can beat obedience to the word, right? That's the surface level. We get into what Moreh Chanan said probably next lesson. No, not right now. No. All right, now before I had, I'm going to read you the dream about closing the door again, okay? But before that, I have 3 questions for you. Think about these questions for a moment. Don't answer now. Thank you. All right. Question number 1. When you talk about different winds coming in and blowing and beating on the house, in what ways does this affect us now? That's question number 1. Question number 2, what are the winds that will come and blow and beat on your house and try to knock it off your foundation? That's question number 2. Number 3, what about the different winds that blow in and out of you? What are those winds? All right. Now keep these questions in mind and we'll revisit at the end of the lesson. All right. Well, actually, you know what? Go ahead and answer the first one now. I know you want to.
What I wanted to share was just so they understand first that the house is you.
All
right.
I shouldn't have let you talk.
Oh, okay. So I went to the end.
Yeah. But it's good to know to be on the same page. It's always good to know we're on the same page. Always. My goodness. I told you, you want to come up here and do this, you can. You in the corners? You're gleaning. I got you. Close the door. Close the door. All right. So here's the dream that I had for the 3rd time. I was living in a high-rise building, but owned an abandoned house that was boarded up. I could see this house from a window inside the apartment. It was situated in a field that was across the road, but for some reason, I kept leaving the door open. I would see the door open from the window and rush down to go close it. I would go in the house, which oddly had lights. After clearing the house, I would close the door, so I thought, only to look out the window to see it open again. I would repeat this process a couple of times until I realized that I didn't bring the key to actually lock the door. Once I realized I needed the key, I went looking for it. Now, that was a struggle in itself, but once I found the key, it was a struggle getting back to the house in order to lock the door. All of a sudden, the terrain changed and went from sunny and warm to overcast and snowy. Deep snow that was hard to step in and out of, and for some reason, the door wasn't a regular door. It was thick plywood, but had an actual lock in it. You could imagine one of those industrial doors. All right. Once I got to the door, I was able to clear it out again, and this time close and lock it. Now, I do believe the area cleared up and was no longer overcast with snow. So with this, I took a couple of things from it. One being, throughout these past few lessons, we have been talking about seeking the Father. We've talked about no matter what you have going on, no matter what you do, the Father should always come first. Now, during the prayer challenge we had last year, if you all remember, it was the same thing. We talked about making sure the Father was the center of your prayer. Even before we pray here in the Knesset, you always hear the Moreh say, if all hearts and minds are clear, right? So what this dream told me is that until you clear out the things that distract you, the things that ultimately take your focus away from the Father, how far do you think you're going to get in this walk? I stated before that our goal is to be acceptable in the sight of the Father. So let me break this down just a little bit more. I mentioned that when I got to the house, I had to clear it out. This is identifying the things that are still a distraction or stumbling block in your life. I didn't mention how after I would clear out the house, I would close the door, so I thought. Now, this was letting me know that just because I identified the issue doesn't mean that I actually took care of that issue. Leaving the door open, and it wasn't like the door was just wide open, It was open just a little bit. And I forgot to mention that. The door will be cracked just enough for something or someone to slip in. So because it doesn't take much to come and disrupt things, in and out of your life, it only needs a little bit. The enemy only needs a little hitch, right? The smallest of things can come in and be a distraction and throw weeks and months of worth of progress right out the window. Now, let's see here. I'm gonna skip a couple. I think that some of us may still be struggling with this a little bit. I didn't want to say that, but it's true. It's not so much that we are sinning, it's the fact that the uncleanness that has already been identified has not been addressed. You can't go on with your life inside of this walk and act like everything is okay. Right? You might be able to fool me or a host of other people, but you're not fooling the Father when it comes to that. So the gist of the dream was that, and I'm adding this because I didn't see it before, but just like Moreh Lamadyahu has been saying in his lessons, the Father is giving us all these chances to get things right. At some point, you have to seize this opportunity. It's not going to be easy, as a matter of fact. It's going to be very hard, especially when you start identifying the things that you need to get rid of, right? It was a struggle. Why? Because once you realize that you have things that need to be taken care of, there's always going to be something. You're going to get test after test, struggle after struggle. But understand that your today and certainly your tomorrow is not promised, like I read in that opening statement. Right? Now, as I read that dream, there are obstacles in my way, but I endured and made sure that I completed the task at hand. The principle should apply to everyone hearing me right now. No matter what obstacles you face, you still have to complete your task. Now, one more thing, and this is where Lamar came in, that I just realized in rereading this. I said that this abandoned house had lights. Now, think about that. The house represents the mind or the heart and the fullness thereof. It represents you. For me, I have the light in here. I have the instructions. I have Torah, but that doesn't mean anything for the most part. Because for some reason, I still have something in me that I couldn't get rid of. So that goes back to the other point. You can read this Bible frontwards and backwards. You know all definitions and everything. But if you still got something up in there that's wicked that we can't see, the Father sees it. And it's something that you need to take care of, right? So even Jan said that she's praying and she wants to hear your answer. You have to wait on the answer and you have to look at it. And once you identify it, that's when you attack it. All right. All right. Hopefully that'll be the last time I have to read that. I hope everybody got it. All right. Uh-oh. Got a question.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
In this dream of yours, was the house furnished?
No.
It was not furnished. It was
It's an abandoned house that had lights. It was an old wooden house. I had a picture of it that represented last time, but no, it was just a little box house in the middle of a field.
It was clean,
Mm-hmm.
but not furnished. Interesting.
Uh-oh, we got a prophet in the house. He gonna give me something after the lesson.
Well,
I got put.
when
Go
it
ahead.
is cleaned,
Mm-hmm.
furnished, I believe the furniture would represent not only the rug that's there, but those governances, what we walk by, what we live by, the laws, the statutes, commandments. And as you were saying, there was a crack that was there,
Mm-hmm.
and something from the outside could still come in. So, but anyway, I just find it interesting that that it had no furniture.
Yeah.
That's all.
I gotta stop this man from talking. All right. You said what now? We can't hear you.
I just thought about like if you like you said it was empty, so like when you clean out your house, you also want to fill it back up with the right things. That can represent the furniture as well.
Yeah, because when I was, as you were reading it, I guess what's coming to mind basically is as Zacchaeus was talking about the furniture, but I was thinking about the temple, the tabernacle. Remember, he made specific furniture for his tabernacle, and they all have meaning. The menorah with the seven, what does that mean? The showbread, what does that mean? So I'm getting at is, if it's empty, there's a crack, there's no furniture, that furniture can't be polluted or tainted because of that crack, so to speak.
That's what I'm saying. They said I had to get rid of what was in there before he can fill it back up. It wasn't no roach. Bring it down. Bring it down.
An unresolved issue.
We're going to have to edit this out. Okay, so I asked a question on Facebook and got some good answers. All right, so I will. Okay, go ahead, Nanamana.
Sika. And the lock was the word of the Most High and you being obedient to it. Therefore, nothing else evil could come into the house.
Yeah. Oh, you're saying what the lock represented?
Yes.
Yes. But still, I had to clear out what was ever in there first.
And you had to clean that. You had to clean everything out. To clear it out. You have to clear everything out and make sure everything is good and clean, which of course is the Father's word.
You notice I kept going back and they kept thinking it was locked.
But I noticed that you weren't, like you said, you weren't putting anything on it. You didn't know to put the lock on it. You didn't know. You kept closing the door, but you wouldn't put the key element on the door, which was the lock.
Exactly.
You had the light on. The light was shining in you, but you didn't put the lock on the door, and therefore evilness kept coming in.
It wasn't until after I actually had the lock and the key for that lock that things started to change. That's right. All right. Cleanness. I was able to get whatever out of there, so he allowed that seal, that he allowed that crack to be sealed at that point. Like I always say, you can't run away from it. Whatever the issue that you have, whatever that uncleanness is, you need to identify it. And just like we talk about the wind and that dust, either you gonna try to repent so you can move on, or you can just gonna ride that whole thing out. You're never gonna get right in that situation. All right. Any other questions? All right. So I asked a question on Facebook and got some good answers. So I will ask the same question here. I got a lot of questions today, right? And I know this will be a piece of cake. It's going to be a piece of cake because, oh my goodness. No. Remember, this is surface level. This ain't deep, scholarly stuff like you do. Okay. All right. You can always walk up here. What does it mean to walk in the Spirit? I'm trying to see something. Don't all speak at once, please. Surface. We ain't got to get deep. It's really not that hard of a question. Oh my goodness. We ain't going through your theology books. Not right now. Okay, well, let me help you. I say what I put Ezekiel 11, 19 to 20, and I will give them one heart and a new spirit. I will put within them. I will remove the heart of stone and from their flesh and give them a heart of flesh, that they may walk in my statutes and keep my rules and obey them. Now, Gadar came on there. He gave all that. He made a paragraph, said whap. But I want to hear somebody else's words. It's like it's right. If it's not a trick question. It's so not a trick question. Not a minor. Okay, not a minor on the road today. I guess you ain't got the meds no more, do you?
No. I'm off the medication.
Hallelujah. She's off. She's off.
Yes, I'm off the medication. So basically, walking in the Spirit, it comes as a mindset, and it's something that you have to want to do. Once you get into the words of studying the words of the Most High and taking on that understanding and that wisdom, it comes as a mindset of something that you want to do. It comes with the Ruach. I mean, you have to want to do it. And it does come in a mindset, and it does change you. It changes your heart. It does change your flesh. It changes you from the inside. But you have to you have to walk it out. Like Moreh always says, you have to want to do it.
All right. Anybody else?
Obedient.
Oh, it's what now? It's obedient. Oh, because it says what right there? It's obey. Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure. Now, let's read that. Let's read this in Ezekiel 36, 25 to 27. All right. I will put my spirit within you. Therefore, say to the house of Israel, thus says Yahuah Elohim, is it not for your sake? It is not for your sake, O house of Israel, that I am about to act. But for the sake of my set apart name, which you have profaned among the nations to which you came. Remember that whole lesson we did with make Yahuah's name great again? And I will vindicate the holiness of my great name, which has been profaned among the nations, and which you have profaned among them. And the nations will know that I am Yahuah, declares Yahuah Elohim. When through you I vindicate my holiness before their eyes, I will take you from the nations and gather you from all the countries and bring you into your own land. That's that bus, right? Yeah, okay. I will sprinkle clean water on you, and you shall be clean from all your uncleanliness, and from all your idols I will cleanse you. And I will give you a new heart, and a new spirit I will put within you. And I will remove the heart of stone from your flesh and give you a heart of flesh, and I will put my spirit within you. And do what now? And cause you to walk in my statutes and be careful to do what? Okay, so can I ask the question again? What does it mean to walk in the Spirit? Y'all still acting tentative, though.
You have to obey. Obey his statutes and rules. To obey.
Laws and commandments.
Yeah,
How gonna make me knock over stuff? Okay. Say that again. Say that again. Yeah.
So
right.
realistically, you want to carefully obey his rule, not just obey, but carefully though, because it lasts longer if you're being careful about it. You're making it set apart as it is set apart, but it becomes set apart in you, so you can obey it if you're careful in doing that.
Yeah, I get that.
Put your own. You're saying you take your own.
Go ahead.
All right. We can project our own understanding of his statutes and commandments and Torah. And we'll follow, we'll make a Torah unto ourselves, because that's what we're guilty of. We have our own little taka notes, as they would say, our own little personal Torahs. Yeah, so we'll add
you
our
put yourself
own,
in it.
Yeah, we'll put our thing into it, and then as long as we're obeying it according to our understanding, then we consider ourselves set apart. But that's why he said when he gather us together,
Mm-hmm.
you know, he said he's going to purge out what? The rebels.
The rebels.
Right. And then, you know, because they're not going to go in the land. They're going to see the land like Moses did. There it is over there. You know what I'm saying?
All that goodness.
I mean, think about it. It's right over there.
Yeah.
We're about to go in. And then you find out, oh, you ain't going in.
Hold on, follow that bus. Let me get on that bus.
Because you wasn't careful.
Mm-mm. No. Go ahead.
Shalom. So I don't know. I feel like I want it to become more. I need more. I want it to be more plain. So the question is, how do you carefully walk in his statutes and obey him? How do you carefully do that?
Well, firstly, you don't make it about yourself. That's the first thing. You got to understand that this is his will and his purpose for your life, not your own. Yes, Moreh Dad does say that. I mean, I think you got something to say about that. I just think that's the ultimate rule right there, is to make sure you're making it all about him. That's what all this is about. All these distractions that you need to identify and get rid of, so you can get back to what he wants you to do.
Yeah, I think sometimes when we overdo it. In other words, the word is he has made it simple first. So if we just simply get from its pashat, or its literal and understanding, that's where it starts. We, instead of going all the way up in the cloud somewhere, we wind up losing the fundamental understanding of what we need to obey. You know, sometimes we question things, even though it says it, like, hey, let's say keep the Shabbat. Well, you know, the Shabbat is so, and you start going way up somewhere. You say, okay, first let's just get this right here first, and then from there we can build. But fundamentally, we start with something that, because remember, he's giving these things out of the mouth of babes. You know, when you get this information, it's for everyone to understand from its beginning. And then they just start walking in, and then as they mature, they come off the milk, they go into the meat. But what is the milk? Is the milk still the sincere word of Elohim? So then start from this basic principle of it and just do it. Stop questioning what it is. Just do what it says first.
All right, I'm gonna stop right there. Because, you want to have some more questions? No, I want to save that for the next lesson, because I think that kind of builds on what you were talking about. So I want to save that so we can start identifying these other winds or these other ruachs and stuff. So we start getting into that. Oh my goodness. Yes.
Okay, so for homework, we should be looking at these parables and going back. I would suggest like a word
The questions.
study. These questions, go back to these parables and read up on why he's using these specific words, these key words. There's something behind these key words that will apply to each one of us, you know, and allow the Ruach to show you what those things are.
Yep. So now we are on to identifying these different spirits and how they apply to your life. I think that's where we're going to start next time. Okay. But hold on, let me get over there. We're gonna keep that. We're gonna don't look at it. Don't look at it. Do not look at it. Don't look at it. I see you saw evil. Okay. No. Any questions? Pause. No, don't download that. You just watch it online. Any questions, comments, concerns? This was
Shabbat shalom.
Go ahead.
I have a comment, I guess. When you brought up the slide about closing the door.
Oh, you gonna make me go all the way back there? Okay.
No, you don't have to take it back. Okay. I was just thinking with that door being cracked, and what came to my mind was the fact when the Messiah was talking about taking the spirits out of one person who had the spirits in them, and he said, if you don't keep your house clean, that the spirit will come back and bring 7 more with him. So with that door being cracked, that's a possibility of bringing back them same old spirits.
Oh yeah, coming in and out. That's why, you know, that door kept coming back open. You know, because whatever it was still finding its way up in there. Mm-hmm.
And
Hallelujah. Anybody else? All right. Like I said before, if all hearts and minds are clear, we can stand and close. Who's okay.